Okay, so you've got this Biology 3201 midterm coming up, huh? And you were kind enough to send over your review guide,
Yeah.
Reproduction and Genetics, right?
Yeah, big stuff.
So we're gonna try and like just distill this down into the the must-know things, the
Absolutely.
things you really gotta like
Yeah.
make sure you got.
The key takeaways.
Yeah. So Unit 1 Reproduction.
Okay.
So right off the bat, it's talking about
Wow.
autosomes versus sex chromosomes.
Okay.
So what is the like just fundamental difference there?
All right. So we've got 46 chromosomes,
Mm-hmm.
right? 23 from mom, 23 from dad.
Mm-hmm.
44 of those are what we call autosomes. And those are basically coding for most of your traits,
Okay.
right? Like everything from eye color to hair color to height to, metabolism, all that good stuff.
Okay.
The other two are your sex chromosomes. And that's really what determines if you're biologically male or female.
Hmm.
So you get an X from your mom always, and then from your dad, you can either get an X or a Y.
Okay.
X female, XY.
Easy peasy.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is that genes that are actually located on those sex chromosomes,
Mm-hmm.
especially the X chromosome, they're inherited a little bit differently,
Oh, interesting.
which is why you see some conditions are more common in males
Okay.
because they only have one X chromosome. So if
Mhm.
there's a gene on there that's, causing the problem, there's no backup copy like females would have.
Ah, that's so interesting. Okay.
So understanding that difference between autosomes and sex chromosomes is really going to be important for predicting inheritance.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up we got the cell cycle mitosis meiosis.
Big one.
This is like the heart of it.
Basis of life.
Yeah, so can you kind of break down like what each one of those is?
For sure. So the cell cycle you can just think of as the life of a cell.
Mm-hmm.
So from when it's born to when it divides, that's the cell cycle.
Okay.
Mitosis is a type of cell division, and it's where one cell divides into two identical daughter cells.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's happening when you grow, when you repair a wound. That's mitosis at work. Meiosis is a little different. It's also cell division, but this one's really specialized for sexual reproduction. So it's how we make gametes, those sperm and egg cells.
Gotcha.
And it's all about genetic diversity.
Right.
So the chromosomes, they get shuffled around in a really kind of crazy but beautiful way
Yeah.
and make sure that each sperm or each egg is genetically unique.
Right.
So, really understanding the different stages of both mitosis and meiosis, all those terms that go along with it, that's going to be crucial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of sperm and egg, that brings us to spermatogenesis and oogenesis.
Absolutely. So spermatogenesis is just the fancy word for sperm formation.
Oh.
Oogenesis, same thing, formation of the egg.
Uh-huh.
Both are forms of meiosis, but they have different timelines and outcomes.
Okay.
So, for example, spermatogenesis, you end up with 4 viable sperm cells.
Gotcha.
But with oogenesis, typically you get 1 viable egg cell.
Oh, wow.
And then these other little things called polar bodies that don't actually become eggs. But both processes are obviously essential for sexual reproduction.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so then it's like jumping into plant and human reproduction.
Yeah.
And it's talking about, the structures and the functions.
Yeah, so this is all about knowing the anatomy,
Okay.
the key players, and how they work together to make reproduction happen.
Okay.
So in a flower, you've got structures like the pistil and the stamen,
Right.
which are involved in pollination, right? In humans, it's all about the testes, the ovaries all working together to allow fertilization and then development.
Right.
And a really important part of this in human females is the menstrual cycle.
Yep.
This whole hormonal dance that's happening every month to prepare the body for a potential pregnancy.
It's like a whole orchestra.
It really is.
Yeah, so it's kind of like hormones are just running the show here.
Oh, they are absolutely. Hormones are like the masterminds behind the whole thing.
Okay.
They're these chemical messengers
Mm-hmm.
that are controlling everything from, the development of the reproductive organs in the first place to, when different events happen in the menstrual cycle or in sperm production.
Right.
It's a really intricate system.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last bit in this reproduction unit is development.
All right.
So, starting with that zygote,
Single cell.
going all the way to a fetus.
Full-blown little human.
Yeah. And those extra embryonic membranes, like what's going on there?
Okay, so this is where, the magic really happens. You get this single-celled zygote.
Yeah.
And it starts dividing like crazy, differentiating, forming all these different types of cells to make all the different parts of the body.
Wow.
And those extra embryonic membranes, they're kind of like the support system.
Okay.
So you've got the amnion, which forms that fluid-filled sac around the baby to protect it. You've got the chorion that contributes to the placenta, which is how the baby gets nutrients and oxygen from mom.
Right.
So they're really crucial for development.
Very cool. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit to Unit 2, genetics.
All right.
And it starts out with Mendelian genetics. And it's talking about one-trait crosses and test crosses. Like, this is where we really see how those traits are passed on.
Absolutely. This is where it all started, right?
Huh.
Mendel, he was really the pioneer.
Okay.
So one trait cross is you're just focusing on one characteristic.
Gotcha.
Like flower color.
Yeah.
Right? And seeing how that's inherited. A test cross is kind of a sneaky way to figure out the genotype of an individual if they're showing the dominant trait. So are they homozygous dominant or are they heterozygous?
Right.
And then the Punnett square, that's your tool for predicting what those offspring are going to look like.
Yeah.
Genotypes and phenotypes.
Okay, so then we start going beyond simple dominance and we get into incomplete dominance. Multiple alleles. It's like, okay, now we're getting a little more complicated.
Yeah, so it's not always just, dominant or recessive.
Right.
Sometimes you get this blend, right? So incomplete dominance, think of a red flower and a white flower. They have offspring and the offspring are pink.
Okay.
Right? That's that blended phenotype.
Right.
Multiple alleles just means there's more than two versions of a gene in a population.
Okay.
So like the ABO blood group, right? You've got A, B, and O.
Right.
And then two trait crosses and polygenic inheritance that just adds more layers. Right now, you're looking at two traits at once or maybe multiple genes contributing to a single trait. But even in those cases, the principles of Mendelian genetics and the Punnett square are still your friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And finally, we got pedigrees, these family tree diagrams that are used to track these traits.
Yeah, pedigrees are like detective work for genetics.
Okay.
So you're looking at, a family tree and you see how a trait pops up across generations. And based on those patterns, you can figure out, okay, is this trait linked to an autosome or a sex chromosome? Is it dominant or recessive?
Right.
And once you can interpret those patterns, you can actually predict the likelihood of, future generations inheriting certain conditions.
Wow. That's really cool. Okay, so there you have it. That was your whirlwind tour through the core concepts from your Biology 3201 midterm review guide.
That was a lot.
I know, right? But hopefully now you're feeling a little bit more confident
Yeah.
about tackling those big ideas.
Absolutely.
So as you continue studying, think about this. How does the process of meiosis, which we talked about how it creates all this genetic variation, how does that directly connect to the inheritance patterns we see in genetics?
Yeah.
Like, what does that tell us about the huge diversity of life that we see everywhere?
It makes you think, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is. All right, well, good luck on your midterm.
You got this.
You got this. We're here to help.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
See you later.